Hey everyone, and welcome back to Gen Z Unfiltered, the podcast where we unpack global and political issues without making them sound like a textbook. Today, we're going to dive into what may seem as a minimal issue, but trust me when I say it isn't. So, let's get into it. Imagine waking up tomorrow in a city you've never seen before. You walk outside and there are people everywhere. Someone is rushing to work, someone is selling food on the street, a bus is already packed. Buildings stretch as far as you can see while construction is happening on almost every empty piece of land. And somewhere among all of these people, there is someone who arrived yesterday. They came from a village. Maybe they came looking for a job. Maybe they wanted better education. Maybe their hometown simply couldn't provide the opportunities they needed. That person is part of one of the biggest transformations in human history, urbanization. So, let's start with the most obvious question. Why do people move? The answer is usually opportunity. Cities concentrate jobs, universities, hospitals, businesses, transport, and investment into relatively small areas. And this concentration can actually make economies more productive. Economists call this agglomeration. Basically, when businesses and workers are close together, they can exchange ideas more easily, find employees more quickly, and share infrastructure. Think about Bengaluru, India. Bengaluru has developed into one of India's major technology centers. Its universities produce skilled graduates, technology companies create employment, investment attracts more companies, and those companies attract even more workers. It creates a cycle. People attract businesses, businesses attract investment, and investment attracts more people. This is one reason cities can become powerful engines of economic growth. And the impact isn't only economic. A person moving into a city may suddenly have access to a hospital that wasn't available in their rural community. They might attend a better equipped school. They might find employment. They might gain access to public transport, electricity, internet, and other services. So at its best, urbanization can improve people's quality of life. But here's the problem. The benefits of the city aren't automatically shared equally. And that brings us to the darker side of urbanization. The city of opportunity and inequality. Imagine arriving in Mumbai because you've heard that there are thousands of jobs. You eventually find one, but then you discover something else. You can't afford the city's housing. So, where do you go? This is one of the biggest challenges created by rapid urbanization. Housing demand can grow faster than affordable housing supply. Our World in Data reports that around 1 in 4 urban residents globally live in slum households under the international definition, meaning their household lacks at least one basic condition such as adequate sanitation, clean water, sufficient living space, or durable housing. A powerful case study is Mumbai. Mumbai is one of India's most economically important cities. It contains major financial institutions, multinational companies, and some extremely expensive real estate. But alongside this wealth are extensive informal settlements. One of the best known is Dharavi. Now it's easy to look at Dharavi and think that's simply a failure of urbanization. But that would be an oversimplification. Dharavi contains thousands of businesses, workshops, and recycling enterprises. People don't simply live there, they work there. This tells us something really important about informal settlements. They aren't necessarily communities of people who have failed to participate in the city. In many cases, they are communities of people who are actively participating in the urban economy but cannot afford formal housing. So the issue isn't simply why are there slums? The deeper question is, why is economic opportunity growing faster than the people's ability to access safe and affordable housing? Now let's move on to the environmental cost of urbanization. Cities don't just transform human lives, they transform the physical environment. When cities expand, natural surfaces are often replaced with concrete, asphalt, and buildings. And that changes how water moves through the environment. Instead of rainfall being absorbed into soil and vegetation, large amounts can run over impermeable surfaces and enter drainage systems. This can contribute to flooding. Then there's the urban heat island effect. Concrete and asphalt absorb heat. Buildings can trap warmth. And when vegetation is replaced with built surfaces, there is less natural cooling. Now add climate change to the equation. Suddenly, urbanization isn't just a development issue, it's a climate issue. UN Habitat's World Cities Report 2024 describes cities as being both highly exposed to climate change and major contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. It highlights threats including flooding, heat waves, storms, and droughts, while emphasizing that poorer communities often face the greatest risk with the fewest resources to respond. And one city that demonstrates this complexity is Jakarta, Indonesia. Jakarta has experienced serious flooding, but flooding there isn't caused by one simple factor. There's heavy rainfall, there are drainage challenges, there's land subsidence, there's rapid development, and there are wider climate pressures. This is important because urban environmental problems are rarely isolated. A housing decision can affect land use can affect drainage can affect flooding, and transport decisions can affect air pollution, and air pollution contributes to wider environmental problems. Everything connects. So, after all of this, is urbanization good or bad? The answer is neither. Urbanization is a process. Its consequences depend on how that process is managed. So, what can actually be done? There isn't one magical solution. Instead, cities should think about urbanization as a system. Cities need to plan before the crisis happens, not after. So perhaps we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, is urbanization good or bad, we should ask, what kind of urbanization are we creating? Because urbanization isn't going away. More people will live in cities, more land will become urban, more megacities will emerge. The real challenge is deciding what happens next. Will cities become places where economic opportunity is concentrated but inequality grows alongside it? Will they become places where environmental problems are ignored until they become disasters? Or can they become places where growth, sustainability, and equality actually exist together? There is no perfect city, but there are better choices. A city can decide to build public transport before congestion becomes impossible to deal with. It can protect green spaces before flooding can become catastrophic. And it can treat climate resilience as something that belongs to everyone, not just those who can afford it. Because perhaps the greatest misconception about urbanization is that cities are made of buildings. They're not. They're made of people. The person commuting to work, the child going to school, the family looking for affordable housing, the entrepreneur opening a small business, the worker traveling across the city every morning, the person planting a tree in a neighborhood that desperately needs shade. Every one of them is part of the city. So perhaps the success of urbanization shouldn't be measured by the height of its skyscrapers, or the size of its economy, or the number of people it contains. Maybe the real question is much simpler. Can a city grow without leaving its people behind? Because a city that grows bigger isn't necessarily a better city. A better city is one where more people can actually live better lives. And that is the real challenge of urbanization. Stay curious, stay informed, and remember, sometimes the biggest geopolitical stories aren't always centered around wars. I'm Aranima, and I'll see you in the next one.